All right, welcome back to Newfound Happy Hour. This is a different setup, you might notice. I am at Mike's studio where he does the Taking Action podcast that I was on recently, and so you can keep an eye out for that episode in the future. But we realized that we had a few things we could talk about aside from that original episode, so here we are. Do you want to just start with a bit of your background, your age, education, what you do for work?
Sure. I feel like I'm at one of those work conferences where everyone introduces themselves.
Yeah. Tell us a fun fact.
So my name is Michael. I'm 37 years old, I think. Yeah, 37. Sometimes forget my age. From St. John's, grew up in Mount Pearl. Grew up pretty poor in my opinion. Never really had much money, but also never really needed anything. Pretty simple. I think the best place to start from my background is probably the military, because that kind of made me a large part who I am today. Before the military, I was very shy, very closed off. Which is funny too, because I was always like the captain of the basketball team or into sports and into like the popular crew, but never popular, at least in my own opinion, I don't think. So I joined the military in grade 11, and they kind of break you down as a person and show you who you want to be and who you don't want to be, which is one of the biggest things. So I eventually became a leader in the military and an instructor. From there, I became an electrician and got into rope access work. So I'm a journeyman electrician and level 2 rope access technician. And then I had a family, moved into a more serious relationship, and had my beautiful daughter, who is the love of my life. And I often say that I didn't really know what love was until I had my daughter. I thought I loved people in past relationships, but it's something completely different.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is being a father. And in between that whole time, I went and I did my electrical course, became a journeyman electrician and rope access technician, but then realized that rotational work is extremely hard on relationships.
I would imagine it is.
Yeah. Have you ever dated anyone who's worked away?
No.
No?
No.
Yeah. So
But I have a lot of family and friends who have partners who do on and off, so.
Right. So as you can imagine, that's difficult being there half the time on both the child and the partner. So I got out of trades work altogether and went back to school and did software development and kind of fell in love with software development. Also too, I did photography for like a decade.
Okay.
Before, like when I was getting my electrical coursing schooling done. So that gave me the background to do the podcast, and in between there, I produced a TV show with Rogers TV, and that was really successful in my own opinion, because it never cost me a bunch of money.
Right.
So
what show was that?
It was a show called Treasure X. It was a local reality show where we had 6 contestants camp out in the wilderness over 10 days and compete in challenges sponsored by local businesses so that they could geocache their way to a $5,000 treasure that we had hidden out in the wilderness.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of crazy, but a lot of fun. So yeah, I've got this really weird mixed bag of skills and life experience. And I was thinking about it as I was wondering how to prepare for this podcast and what we would talk about. And I realized that I've got a lot of experience with different types of men. The tradesmen versus software tech white collar men versus military men versus single fathers.
Yeah.
I've got a really weird and I think full perspective on the types of men that exist in this world. And then where do I want to fit amongst them?
That gives us a lot of things to talk about.
I imagine.
Yeah, so and you also have mainstream media.
Mainstream is a platform that I'm building really as an effort to push local film production, but then also get a more fair balanced perspective of media in our social landscape. So I think right now that media is very biased and it's very selective, especially if you look at social media. We're kind of locked into these algorithms. And I could speak a little bit about that from a tech perspective, but also from a media perspective, having been in TV and broadcast for some time now. So I think the media is a tricky thing. We've got a lot of censorship bills coming down the pipeline. Now with the Liberals having got in again, I don't know what's in store.
Happened.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah.
So hopefully the censorship doesn't go in the wrong direction. Hopefully it goes in a positive one. But only time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens with all of that. And so mainstream media right now is like hosting your podcast?
No, so it's still
Or
in development.
okay.
Yeah, so I do have it set up so that the podcasts are on it, but it's not available
Right.
to the public.
Okay.
The main place to view the podcast right now is on Instagram for the Reels, and then YouTube and Spotify.
Right. Perfect. And so we met at speed dating because you came to one of my speed dating events. And I think that was maybe a couple months ago. But we were kind of talking about relationships and speed dating and all of that. How was your experience speed dating?
Right off the bat, the first thing that comes to my mind is it was fun. You know, it's fun to get out, and it's fun to meet new people, and it's just fun to interact. And plus, I got to meet you, and then the business owners of, was it the Whiskey Wall?
Wooden walls.
Wooden Walls.
Yeah.
And they were lovely. They let me try some of their vodkas, and it was just
Yeah,
a
they're
great
great.
experience. It was great to be out. In terms of who I matched up with on the dates, nothing really hit home for me in the point where I'd want to pursue a long-term relationship. A lot of
Right.
lovely people,
Yeah.
just not who I see myself with.
Right. And was it all new people to you?
No, actually.
Okay, you did know someone there.
I knew one lady from like a friend group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she's a lovely person.
Yeah. I feel like Newfoundland, we think it's so small, but so far at most of the events, people don't know. They might know one or two people, but a lot of them don't know anyone.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun seeing people meet for the first time.
Absolutely.
And so you obviously went because you're single. How long have you been single? Do you want to say a bit of your dating history?
Yeah, so I think I've had two really serious relationships in my life. And one was with my daughter's mother. And that was a relationship that probably lasted for 5 or 6 years. And then I had another serious relationship after that that lasted probably 2.5 to 3 years. And I would categorize those as the big ones. But then I've
Yeah.
obviously dated a lot in between then.
Right.
And I think, it's valuable. I think the most valuable thing to take away from what I would consider a failed relationship or a relationship that just doesn't work out is what you want in a partner, and then what you did that was maybe been shorthanded for them, or what they expected
Right.
and what you were unable to compromise on.
That makes sense. I feel like we all walk away from a relationship knowing something that we didn't like and something that we did like and that you want to take into the next one. So that makes sense.
I mean, even more so about yourself, though, as well. So not only just in the partner, what you want and don't want, but then,
What could you have done differently?
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think we all reflect. Some of the things that I did or thought when I was in my early 20s is very different than the way I would think about it now.
Right.
And as a dad, like what are things that you have to think about when dating, when considering a relationship? Because I was single for a long time, got into a relationship with someone who has a 13-year-old. Well, he was 12 when we first got together. But that was a big thing of like when to introduce and if we even should, and like how to go about all of that and like how that relationship should be. So I imagine there's things that you have to think about.
There absolutely is. I even sat down a while ago and wrote out some qualifiers that a person has to meet before I introduce them to my daughter. And one of those qualifiers was I want to meet their parents. That's something I took away from one of my serious relationships, was that while her parents were absolutely lovely, and my daughter would be lucky to have them in her life, I noticed that certain things triggered something in me. I'm very protective over my daughter, and especially what men are around her. And even though I don't think the potential for harm was there, it was really enlightening for myself. And I noticed that I think it's okay to be overly cautious when it comes to something serious, like sexual abuse or something like that for a child. And I would sacrifice them not being as close with grandparents or extended family in order to protect her from that.
Totally. I think that's something that people are now talking about, is like certain situations that were uncomfortable as kids. Like me and my girlfriends actually said the other night how oftentimes you kind of make a kid like hug their great uncle or like,
Never
something
did
like that. And yeah, it's something that like we didn't really think about. But then once I have a niece, and so once she was around, I'm like, oh, we're actually not going to do that. She can say, no thanks. No thanks, I don't want to hug. So yeah, sometimes you don't think about it until you have a kid around that you're
Right.
then considering.
And that's an important one, letting the child decide for themselves whether or not they want to say yes or no to that hug. But then I think it's important for me as a parent to speak up on behalf of my daughter
Yep.
and read her body language and read her
Totally.
state of mind and how she's feeling in the moment. And a lot of the times the kids are, while extremely intelligent and intuitive, don't just have no life experience.
And they don't have the words to articulate it.
Yeah, they're so
Yeah.
innocent, right?
Yeah.
Like kids will see something that could be very sexual, and think it's something
Yeah.
that's just playful and there's no ill intent.
Totally. And I mean, when was the last relationship you said? The most recent one? A few years ago?
Yeah, it ended like the beginning of 2023.
Okay. So since then, have you dated and considered bringing someone around, or?
Yeah. So my perspective has changed on introducing the people to my daughter, and her name is Aura. It's changed quite a bit in the last few years to the point where I'm more comfortable introducing people to her, even if it's not a serious relationship or what I'm considering would be a serious relationship, because it's normal and healthy for a parent to have friends, right? So it just depends on to what level you want to introduce your child into this
Right.
person. Like I could have a friendship with many people, and she should see me having healthy friendships. And at the same time, if it doesn't work out, I think it's okay to say this person and I aren't friends anymore, or we probably won't be hanging out with this person anymore.
That's a good point, because I kind of thought about it as like I don't want to be introduced until we know how serious this is, kind of thing, which I think was good for us to do. It just made sense, but I guess you're right in the way that it depends on how or like to what extent you're bringing them around.
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, she's gonna move in,
Right.
that's obviously like a more serious relationship, but to come over for a coffee or something, like that is good to see healthy relationships.
Well, one big thing that I have to consider is whether or not my daughter likes the person. It's not only just does this person meet what I'm looking for, does she meet what Aura's looking for? And a lot of the times, some people might assume that they're looking for a mother figure, but that's not the case in my situation. Like Aura has a fantastic mother.
Yeah.
It's just we weren't meant for each other.
Right.
But that's one of the things that attracted me to her the most when I initially met her, is that she had a son and she was a fantastic mother to her son. I find that very attractive.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And I think in your 30s and I'm assuming 40s, that's kind of more common, is meeting people who have kids. So it's something to consider, and also something to kind of show green flags. Like if someone is a good parent and the way they parent probably says a lot about how they're going to handle relationships too.
I've had a lot of people say that about me, and that I'm a fantastic father. And that's the thing that I try to put the most energy into. It's she gets the majority of my time, which is also something we could talk about, which is very hard to balance. Like some women want to be the only one a man sees and wants, and that's fear. That's absolutely fear.
Yep.
But at the same time, my daughter also wants that. She wants a lot of my attention as well. So it's not split attention, but more so, how do we introduce a new person into our setting and all have fun together?
Right.
Shared time.
Yeah. That's
Shared
a good way to
quality
look
time.
at it. And are most of your friends single, married?
That's a great question. I feel like my friend group changes kind of often.
Yeah.
I've
I have both. I have like a group of friends who have been together for a long time, just starting to get married, and then I have my single friends who are being very single.
Right.
So, and then kind of in between, like people who, like me, like I'm in a fairly new relationship compared to my single friends and married friends. Like it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, and it changes too. Someone who's been in a relationship for a long time, that relationship might end, and then they become single, and they want to go out and have fun and experiment as well. So I think it's a mix. Off the top of my head, I'm getting really close with my current work friends, my current coworkers, which is strange because normally I don't jive very well with tradespeople at all. We're just very different in terms of mindset, and I don't like to say I don't believe anyone is smart or stupid. I believe that we all have a certain amount of time, and what we choose to spend that time on is where we get experience, and experience is strongly tied to smartness, in my opinion. So it's not that they're not smart, but they certainly have a certain way of talking and certain interests. A lot of times but not what I'm interested in. I
Right.
like talking about ideas.
Yeah.
I like talking about where the world is going and how I can make it a better place. What things do I think are important to do at my time?
Yeah.
Not so much of let's go out on the quad and catch a moose, even though
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
love to do that.
Yeah.
just for some fun.
Yeah. No, I relate to that for sure. Like now that you are, I guess it's safe to say that you are dating, you're open to dating.
Yeah.
What are qualities that you do look for?
That's an interesting one because there's a lot of important ones, and the first one that comes to my mind, which I think is, I would assume is important for everyone, but almost like on an intuitive level, is just physical attraction. Not only does this person physically interest you, whether it's because of the shape of their body or the color of their hair, the color of their eyes, the look of their face, whatever it is. Well, I think that's important. That only gets you so far. And then oftentimes I've dated really beautiful women, and over time I learned that I'm not attracted to their personality, and then I don't even find them attractive.
Yep.
They could be the most beautiful people in the world, and if I'm not attracted to their personality, it disappears. It really disappears. Like I don't see it anymore.
Yeah, I relate to that too. I feel like there were guys who I thought were so attractive in the beginning, and then at the end I was like, what was I seeing there? Because the personality really does make or break it.
Right. So, I mean, some things to just list a few. Obviously, somebody who cares about their health, their mental health, their physical health. And I think that goes both ways. If you want to date a guy who's extremely attractive, or you want to date a rocket of a woman, and if they're going to the gym all the time, you're probably going to have to get up and go to the gym too, right? Because they're probably going to appreciate the same thing. If they're putting all that effort into themselves, then they're probably going to want that in a partner as well.
Yeah. And I think something I learned is like you can do that without being like over the top into the gym, because I feel like that's what a lot of people put out there that they want, and it's like, I actually don't need a bodybuilder, and like I'm not going to be in the gym every single day, but there's like a balance of it where almost like a lifestyle thing, like you kind of want someone living a similar lifestyle.
Right, absolutely.
If someone expects me to go to the gym 5 o'clock every morning, I'm not doing it.
No.
So we probably wouldn't be a good match, like,
right.
Yeah.
I think even more important than going to the gym is just being active and eating well. Like I'm somebody who really prioritizes what I eat and the ingredients in my food. And oftentimes, like, I don't even see McDonald's as food. I don't drink soft drinks. I don't even see that as an option. If I was to open up my fridge as a child, and how I was fed all sorts of nonsense because my mother just didn't know any better. God love her.
Yeah.
She used to feed me white bread, butter, and sugar. Well, like margarine and like white sugar.
Yeah.
And that was my snack. I don't know how I survived. But
We were all like that though. I have a friend who did that, but it was toast, and they would then dip it into tea as a child.
Yeah. Oh, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
So yeah, I mean, that's very important. So somebody who takes care of themselves, not only mentally and physically, but also prioritizes the food. Ideally, want to grow their own food. It'd be lovely if they, I'm really asking for a full spectrum of things, and much like I try to be as well.
Yeah.
Somebody who appreciates family, but then also has the get up and go. We can't live in this, I think it's called a nuclear family, where just a man works anymore. We just can't afford to do that. We need two people to work. It doesn't have to be full time. Somebody's got to put time in with the family as well. If one person is primarily taking in most of the income for the group.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Did I answer that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think those are some priorities.
Yeah. And I think things like that too, like it kind of goes back to lifestyle, like the way that you're living, you want someone to be similar and on the same page. And I've had friends kind of think about like finances too, like how having significantly different lives in terms of your financial situation. Whereas if you're someone who can go on a bunch of trips often and you want to do that, and maybe you're with someone who can't, it might sound superficial, but like again, it's a lifestyle thing. Like the things that go into your lifestyle can kind of affect it too.
Absolutely. I don't think it's superficial at all.
Yeah.
Because it's, when you think of why somebody want to travel, they're looking for experiences. And if they can have that experience with the person they love,
right,
then it's just going to be better.
Yeah, and I found something that like my girlfriends in particular realized was, and I had a situation like this too, where they're kind of making more money, and for whatever reason the guy isn't, and they won't let them pay for things because they, for whatever reason feel insecure about it or don't like it, or they want to be able to, and they would rather, like in my situation, they would rather not do anything than to do it and me pay for it.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's something that
I
like
don't feel that.
guys can relate to, or I don't know. And maybe this can go into like what different types of men are looking for from your vast range of different men that you've met. Like, is there anything that you've noticed with certain types of guys and what they're looking for, or maybe what they're not looking for? Maybe they just go into relationships not thinking about certain things.
It's interesting I feel a little challenged to speak on behalf of a group because we're so individualized. Like, this is such a unique thing that's based on the individual. If I was to try and group things together, I probably won't say the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking of my supervisor the other day. Made a comment. He said, "I'm not hard to please. I just want, I'll say it." He said, "I just want my skin once a week," and then I don't even think he said anything else. I think that's all he asked for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, men might not be too complicated in terms of what they're looking for, just as a bare minimum thing that has to be in a relationship. I think everybody wants to feel attracted to. Everybody wants to feel desired. And that's actually something I realized for myself. I met a lovely person a while ago. We really hit it off. She showed a lot of interest in me in the beginning, but then very quickly fell off and just doesn't communicate as much as I would like. And actually led me, while she is absolutely gorgeous, physically and personality-wise, I stopped being attracted to her. Because that desire and that want to get to know me, I feel like, disappeared.
Right.
Which is, painful in a lot of ways. It's tricky to get more popular. And I actually wondered about this from a woman's perspective. I'll ask you the same thing, or a slightly different version. But as people become more popular, I fear they have the possibility of being used. And for whatever reason, it's so dependent on the other person. But I always wondered, from a woman's perspective, is there a lot of fear of having dated a guy or dating many guys and just being used because of your looks, and they don't actually want to get to know you personality wise?
I mean, definitely. For me, I can think of friends who, like, even since we were in junior high, like, you would always have guys be like, "What's her deal? Is she single? She's cute," or like make a comment about her looks.
Yeah. I think for men, that's the first thing that comes across my mind. We're very visual creatures.
Yeah, and fair enough. But I think for those people, like, they may have people who are kind of just interested temporarily.
Yeah.
And not actually interested in getting to know them.
Yeah. And that.
So I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always assumed that, and I've always felt really bad for women because of that. But if you go even deeper again, and women have to worry about that, does this person truly want to know me, or are they just interested in getting another notch on their belt, to use that terrible phrase? What does a woman do in that situation?
I mean, it really depends. Like, I think some people become guarded. I've had some situations where, like, I've had guy friends. Like, I definitely have mostly women friends. Yeah. That's just how it's been. Like, I was in cheerleading for a long time. A lot of my friend groups stemmed from that. And through all my jobs, like, it was mostly working with women. So that's just how I got a lot of my friend groups. But I did find that any guys I was friends with, not all, but most, and I haven't been good friends with many, but any close friends, I felt like eventually it turned into something where they were trying to have some kind of hookup or romantic situation. And then you kind of wonder, like, were you just my friend this whole time because of this?
They were like patiently waiting? Is that what
yeah, kind of.
For you to become single or opportunity to pop up?
Yeah,
There's
for an
probably-
opportunity,
There's
I
probably
think.
a bit of that at play.
Yeah. And I find that from all of the girlfriends that I have, I find that some people have experienced that. But I don't think that they have been on the other end of it.
There's a couple of perspectives you could take with that because, initially a man could be attracted physically, but then maybe they're saying, let me see what this person's all about. And maybe they're prioritizing that second phase where, the personality needs to match as well.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just too afraid to ask you out. Or you were single, they didn't want to be a dickhead to their buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so situation dependent.
Yeah, and I won't judge anyone for that. But then when you're someone who has had, like, I wouldn't say I'm someone who's had a lot of people just trying to hook up or something. But like I said, I do have those friends who have experienced that since they were young.
Yeah.
And then people kind of bail. So, yeah, I do wonder that. And I guess it depends on the on the people and everything.
I think one big trap that a lot of guys can fall into in that situation where you become a friend at first and you want to escalate things to the next level, one big thing that I've read in psychology books is escalating sexual attention. So what I mean by that is if we're friends and there's no touching, then it's going to be very hard to jump that gap between friendship and then a sexual
Right.
relationship, right? Usually you can tell if someone is flirting with you or a man is flirting with you by how often they're touching you. And that goes for both men and women.
Right.
Like if I'm not interested in somebody on a sexual level or I don't want to pursue them in a relationship, I won't touch them at all. But if I do subtly, then I'm hinting at that I'm more interested. And I think that goes for women as well. I've had women like hit my shoulder or touch my arm.
That's true.
Or
That's true. That's very true.
pick at my clothes, fix my clothing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it goes
No,
both
that
ways.
makes sense. Yeah. Kind of back to like different types of men, like maybe different careers affecting, well, I mean, it kind of goes back to working on and off, but do you think that the careers that men are in, they tend to be more like emotionally available or to kind of put more of an emphasis on dating? Do you think any of that relates? Or maybe certain jobs like in the military, like I would assume that you kind of have to be a bit in control of your emotions. So maybe you're not as emotional in relationships. Do you think any of that relates?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to talk on with what you just mentioned. It does change. A lot of the trades people I work with, they're probably more focused on, and this is obviously a gross generalization.
Yeah.
But, they actually have really beautiful relationships in some ways because a lot of them are what I would consider baymen. They love being outdoors and they want a woman who's gonna kind of do the same or be capable of doing the same. And at the same, I think everyone's looking for somewhat the same thing. They want someone to spend their life with and get out what they're personally looking for. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a difference. One thing I'd like to mention is that people in white collar jobs, specifically like administration jobs or office jobs, I find most of those men are more liberal leaning or more leaning towards social causes. They're much more open to the emotional side, whereas men on the rigs, I've seen all, and that's just a whole spectrum right there. Like there's some really fantastic, great quality men out there, and then there's also like some pieces of shit.
Yeah, and that's like everywhere.
Yeah, but I don't see that as much in the white collar world.
Okay.
Or at least it's more hidden and guarded. And that's a whole thing as well, playing politics in that setting, as you would know. I mean, working at a large tech company.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Military is something completely different. These three things are really all so different. Military is a really tricky one because that's rotational work at its extreme. That's everything at its extreme.
Yeah.
So having to sit at home as a woman or a man and take care of the home while your partner is away risking their life, not knowing if they're going to be okay. Well, I mean, that trades workers have that as well. I almost just died the weekend, like I mentioned before we started. There's a real risk there, and that's a lot of stress for someone to carry.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer for when they're in a dangerous job.
What were you specifically referring to?
That's kind of what I was thinking about. Like my first thought is like finance bros. The kind of stereotype is to be more not as emotional, I would think.
Interesting.
Or
that could be even different again. I guess a white collar. I'm mostly referring to employees who are punching the clock, building things with tech.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
strongly software developers, because that was my last
Right.
white collar ish job. And the workers are different from the supervisors, and then different again from the owners. You know, there's really so many categories of people
Yeah.
that we and positions that we notch ourselves into over our lives. It's too hard to speak on it without picking one and just generalize
Yeah.
them all.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. In terms of, because I know for me, like I have a lot of friends who are married, and I look up to their relationships, and there's things about them that I'm like, that's like I would really like to find that, and what I looked for when I was dating. Do you have any like friends who are in relationships like that you look up to, or anything about your friends' relationships that you're like, I would like to have that?
That's a good question. There's a certain amount of comfort that one of my best friends has with their partner, and you know, comfort is a necessary thing, but then also contentment can be dangerous, whether or not you just fall into a situation where you're both content, and life gets too busy. Relationship goals and relationships I idolize. You know, I don't think I have a relationship I idolize, but I would really like one. I think it's good to have a goalpost that you're aiming toward. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just lost and there's no plan in place. I think I have one in my mind, but I'm not a big follower of people on social media, and I often don't remember celebrity names and things like that.
Yeah.
But definitely, I can see a strong couple that would be more like life partners than anything else. You know, they grow their own food. They've got their comfortable home. Their security is how I would refer to that. You know, food security and also housing security, even power security, utility security are all things that I would strive for. And then the quality time with the family. Those are the big things. And then finance pops in as well, because you've got to be able to support that system.
Yeah.
Ideally sustainable. Building a sustainable life is my goal. And unfortunately, I don't see too many people doing that, because I think it's really difficult right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of Mike's episode. I think it's so refreshing to hear a man talk about relationships. I don't think we hear that enough. So this conversation will continue in part 2 next Friday. You can watch that on YouTube along with every past episode of Newfound Happy Hour. Most of the recent ones are in video as well, including this one. They're all on YouTube now, so you can check that out and stay tuned for more. You can follow at Newfound Happy Hour on Instagram and Facebook. Have a great weekend.